Hello everyone, good evening. I'm Shreya Dhoundial. Our focus today on Debrief is China and its expanding sphere of aggression across the world. After Ladakh and Uttarakhand, the PLA has made an attempt to intrude into Indian territory in Arunachal Pradesh. Tawang, to be specific. Tawang, that is one of the most strategically important districts in India, one that China lays claim over. Why is the PLA raising temperatures across the LAC when the 13th Corps Commander level talks are just round the corner? 4,000 kilometers away in Taiwan, the threat over a Chinese invasion is rising. Through this week, Beijing has escalated hostilities, sending in 150 fighter jets into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. The country's defense minister is estimating that that invasion could come as soon as 2025. Over the next 30 minutes, a close look at the developing situation at the LAC and Taiwan. Let's start with the latest Chinese provocation at the LAC in Arunachal Pradesh. September 30th, Tawang, Arunachal Pradesh. The morning chill in the air, high up in the mountains, between the border pass of Bumla and Yangtze was routine. But what played out over the next 4 hours was anything but routine. "200 PLA troops marched into Indian territory. Their aggressive charge was aimed at damaging unoccupied Indian bunkers.
This is not your engine.
They were immediately confronted by an Indian patrol. As the face-off intensified, some PLA troops were detained. As things escalated, local commanders rushed in and the very tense situation was diffused. Sources in the army tried to downplay this confrontation at Tawang, saying, and I quote, "The India-China border is not formally demarcated. It is because of a difference in perception of where the border is that these face-offs happen when patrols from both sides meet." Tawang has been a traditional friction point between India and China and was captured by the Chinese within the first few days of the 1962 war. For the Chinese, it is part of larger Tibet. For India, it is one of its most strategic geographies that gives access to the Brahmaputra plain. It is also a major seat of Tibetan Buddhism. In 2011 and 2016, similar incidents of Chinese incursions were reported, but more worryingly, China has propped up well-connected border villages all along the Tibet border to bolster its contested territorial claim. This, of course, doubles up as military infrastructure as well. The army chief, in an interview to CNN News 18, had clearly said that China needs to be watched not just in eastern Ladakh, but all along the 3,488-kilometer long LAC.
It is not just the area of eastern Ladakh, but the whole front, right from Ladakh down to Arunachal. So the whole front will see this enhanced presence till such time that we keep talking and the de-escalation happens.
The incident in Tawang came exactly a month after Chinese troops had come into Barahoti in Uttarakhand, which is a demilitarized zone. 100 of them with 50 horses. Again, it was put down to a difference in perception of where the border is. As India and China prepare to hold the 13th Corps Commander level talks to take the disengagement process forward in eastern Ladakh, what is clear is that the de-escalation at the LAC is a far way off. In New Delhi, I'm Shreya Dhoundial. Let me go straight across to Lieutenant General D.S. Huda, one of the finest strategic experts India has. General Huda, thank you very much for being part of Debrief today. Army sources have put down the Chinese incursion in Tawang and Barahoti down to a difference in perception on where the border is. That this is regular, they say, this is routine. Is it really routine, especially in the areas that we are talking about in Tawang?
Shreya, the point is that there are very few points on the LAC where there's a difference in perception. Therefore, if you look at Ladakh, for example, uh, you will find transgressions happening persistently in areas like Depsang, Pengongso, Chumar, Demcha. Similarly, in Arunachal Pradesh, you will find areas of Asapila, Longju, fishtails, which they call. So Tawang traditionally has not been an area where the LAC has been hotly contested. I think the larger issue, Shreya, that we need to look at is, even if the LAC is undemarcated, at a time when the two countries are trying to reach a settlement of what has happened in Eastern Ladakh, why is it that we are seeing such large incursions by Chinese troops in areas like Barahoti, in areas like what you are saying about the Tawang sector? I mean, is there a different aim behind all these incursions? Because logically speaking, when you have an oncoming, corps commander level meeting, why should you be raising the temperatures in these areas?
General Huda, look at the pattern. It starts in North Sikkim, spreads to eastern Ladakh, the middle sector Barahoti, now the eastern sector Arunachal Pradesh. This, by the looks of it, is an escalation.
I certainly see this as an escalation. As I said, Shreya, earlier, I mean, if the intention is to resolve this crisis peacefully, if the intention is that at some stage the additional troops that have come in must go back, that both countries must get back to bilateral relations as they existed, say, in April of 2020, then why is it that we are seeing constant sort of pinpricks, pressurized attempts on India in areas now, suddenly expanding to the eastern sector? So I see this as an escalation undoubtedly.
Okay, so the next obvious question, General Huda, are incursions like the ones that we are seeing a bigger concern? They are, of course, a concern. Or is the concern of the major infrastructure buildup that the Chinese are investing in across the country, is that the bigger worry? For example, across Arunachal Pradesh, the Chinese have built villages to reinforce their claim. And these are very well-connected villages.
So, Shreya, I think we need to look at the big picture. Even, for example, if we reach some kind of settlement over areas like Hot Springs and PP15, etc., it doesn't take away from what we are seeing happening across the border in Tibet. There is massive infrastructure building that is going on. You recall the new air chief has recently spoken about it. We know that they are attempting to build up air bases, air defense networks, S-400 weapons have got deployed, new weapon systems have got deployed. There are two divisions that are currently located in Tibet. This is the larger picture that we should be looking at and not sort of getting, should I use the word excited about some minor incidents having been resolved in our favor or their favor, etc. At the end of the day, Shreya, we are looking at a long-term strategic contest between India and China that is playing out. We've had a period of good relations with China. We've had a period of calm along the LAC. I'm afraid, that situation is no longer going to exist in the future. So we are looking at a larger neighbor which has the capacity, which has the ability to ramp up what we are seeing, infrastructure building for military purposes, a much bigger economic power, a power with greater military capability. And so what is our long-term plans to deal with this? What are our long-term plans to deal with a much more aggressive China, which is going to attempt to pressurize India because of an uncontested border?
General Huda, the Corps Commander level talks are around the corner. Even if there is an announcement on disengaging in hot springs, which is expected, the fact is that our troops will be spending a second winter at the treacherous heights of eastern Ladakh. And why just a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, who knows for how long this will continue? Because de-escalation, disengagement may happen, but de-escalation and finally de-induction is certainly not happening.
I have no doubt. Shreya. Even if we disengage from the area of hot springs, I don't see, for example, Demchok and Depsang getting dissolved. I see more and more incursions and attempts along the LAC happening by the Chinese. So our troops are going to be there. They have to be prepared, and I have no doubt in my mind that this winter you're going to see similar deployment of troops that we had seen last year, and possibly this is something that's going to become, a part of our LAC management in the future.
General Huda, we'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much. Always good to have you on the show. Now, China's military aggression isn't restricted just to India or the LAC or to eastern Ladakh. Halfway across the world, Taiwan is prepping for a full-scale war as China sends its fighters to Taiwan's airspace. It's a pattern of harassment that Taiwan has withstood for the last 40 years, but tensions have never been this high. China has publicly declared Taiwan will be taken by force if necessary. It could happen as early as 2025, says Taiwan's defense minister. Take a look. After global condemnation of its expansionist designs, the Dragon is now turning its sights homeward. After 4 straight days of incursions, Monday saw a record number of warplanes, 56 of them crossing into Taiwan. Taiwan says 36 fighter jets, 12 H-6 nuclear-capable bombers and 4 other planes entered the Southwest Air Defense Identification Zone. 4 more fighters conducted a night sortie in the same zone.
China flying fighter jets into Taiwan does cause a lot of pressure on our Air Force, Navy and Air Defense forces. But for us, this pressure is also a boost, urging us to be prepared for combat.
Analysts point to 2 likely causes behind the increased Chinese incursion into Taiwan. October 10th marks Taiwan's National Day. The warning in the skies could be seen as a threat to the Taiwanese president. In the last 2 years, Beijing has begun sending large sorties into Taiwan's defense zone to signal dissatisfaction at key moments and keep Taipei's aging fighter fleet regularly stressed. The second reason is likely the training exercise that the US and its allies held last weekend in the waters southeast of Okinawa. British aircraft carrier, HMS Queen Elizabeth, USS Carl Vinson and USS Ronald Reagan were involved in this exercise. So will China invade Taiwan? President Xi has called Taiwan acceding to the mainland inevitable. The incursion is also a message to the US that China, not Washington, sets the rules. The US has reacted strongly to China's provocative military activity.
We strongly urge Beijing to cease its military, diplomatic, and economic pressure and coercion directed at Taiwan.
President Joe Biden will be holding a virtual bilateral meeting with Xi Jinping before the end of the year. There have been tensions between the 2 countries, especially over Taiwan. A senior administration official says the main goal of the proposed meeting between Xi is to keep lines of communication clear between the US and China in order to prevent unnecessary misunderstandings. China hasn't commented, but maintains that such flights are necessary to protect its sovereignty and target collusion between Taiwan and the US. The Quad and the AUKUS were supposed to act as a counterbalance to China, but the dragon only seems to be emboldened by global outrage. With Natasha Menden in New Delhi, I'm Shreya Dhoundial. Now, Taiwan's biggest backer is the United States of America. They supply them with weapons. Its special forces, that's the American Special Forces, have been training Taiwan's forces for the last 1 year secretly. Have America and China come to an agreement on Taiwan? Joe Biden's recent statement has people all over the world scratching their heads and confused. Now, whether it is a bluff or a genuine threat of invasion, the increase in Chinese military activity in Taiwan over the last few months has the world worried. At the heart of these tensions, the Chinese see Taiwan as a breakaway province. Taiwanese disagree and say they will do everything to protect their sovereignty and, importantly, their democracy.
A renegade province or a free country? A communist outpost or a democratic nation? Taiwan has many subjective identities, but one long, protracted history of conflict. Located around 160 kilometers off the coast of southeastern China, Taiwan at one point was self-governed with no unified authority. 1683 changed that with the all-powerful Manchu dynasty of mainland China formally annexing it. For the first time in its history, the island was governed from Beijing. The Manchus ruled Taiwan for more than 200 years, a reign that ended in 1895 after the First Sino-Japanese War. Japan now became the new ruler of Taiwan. But following Japan's humiliating rout in the Second World War, Taiwan returned to Chinese control, but for a very short period. China was already in the midst of a full-scale war between the Chinese Communist Party and the Nationalist Party or the Kuomintang. On October 1st, 1949, the Chinese Communist Party led by Mao Zedong declared the creation of the People's Republic of China. Fearing reprisals, the defeated Kuomintang nationalist government fled to Taiwan along with 2 million refugees. Taiwan once again became a separate entity. Rechristening itself as the Republic of China Taipei, the new government claimed itself to represent all of China, including the communist-ruled mainland. The communist government in Beijing, meanwhile, continued to claim Taiwan as its own breakaway province. Given that the global community was then allergic to communism, Taiwan soon got international recognition after the US and other Western powers sided with it. The UN too had recognized Taiwan's Kuomintang government led by Chiang Kai-shek. The West's affair with Taipei was short-lived though, and by the 70s, owing to China's rapid rise, the UN switched recognition to Beijing. Taiwan was shown the door and its global isolation began. Today, Taiwan holds a unique position globally. It describes itself as a sovereign state with its own constitution, a democratic nation with a standing army. But what eludes Taipei is international recognition. China has successfully kept Taiwan out of the United Nations, and to avoid angering China, very few countries recognize Taiwan, including the United States. India too does not have any formal diplomatic ties with Taiwan. Though there are no official ties between China and Taiwan, curiously both countries enjoy wide trade economic and people-to-people relations. Taiwan has invested billions of dollars in China, and the Taiwanese people own and run companies on the Chinese mainland. Politics once again continues to play with the lives of people. With Rajiv Kumar, Ritangshu Bhattacharya for CNN News 18.
China at one point of time had offered Taiwan the one country, two system formula under which Taiwan would be given significant autonomy if it accepted China's reunification. Taiwan, that had seen what had happened to Hong Kong, refused. And the rest, as they say, is history. Up next, we are getting you the best pictures from India's 89th Air Force Day. So do stay with us. Welcome back. Every year on October 8th, the country celebrates Indian Air Force Day. This year, India has celebrated its 89th Air Force Day. Here are some of the best shots we got from the parade this year. A mix of old and new aircraft that all add up to India's air power.
As the Indian Air Force enters its 90th year, the men and women in blue who serve the nation today are proud custodians of a legacy of valor, sacrifice, and pioneering spirit. It is a great honor for me to stand before you as the successor to a great lineage of commanders who charted a course for the service and brought us to where we stand today. When I look at the security scenario that we face today, I am acutely conscious that I have assumed command at a crucial time. We must demonstrate to the nation that external forces will not be allowed to violate our territory.
This perhaps is one of the most difficult times in history for any service chief to take over. That is all on Debrief today. Thanks very much for watching. Good night.